Welcome in everybody to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and today we're going to take a look at MLS. That's right. There's soccer on this side of the pond too. We're going to talk a little how-to and also what the season's shaping up like with our good friend Ty Roeder. You can follow Ty over on the Twitter machine at SoccerDegen and check out his YouTube channel because it's great. They're doing all kinds of MLS content. It's the MLS Gambling Podcast. That's easy to remember. Ty, I want to welcome you to the show, and I've heard a lot recently about MLS being one of these things that some of these houses are really kind of putting out there in a very easy way for people to wager and very favorable lines because it's a much smaller market than, say, NFL, obviously, or even NBA and some of the other major sports. And that kind of makes it an interesting market for us to start to look at. Have you noticed that same thing in recent years, that the books are a little bit more lenient and MLS is something people can really jump into, maybe in an easier path than they realize?
Yeah. Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me too. 100%. I would mirror MLS. For those of you who are familiar probably with English Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga overseas. The books are typically pretty sharp on the larger leagues over in Europe, but I would mirror MLS to, say, some Sweden leagues, Norwegian leagues, maybe some Chinese leagues, in the sense that a lot of the books don't know what they're doing. When it comes to some of these lines, they're typically way off, and there's a lot of room to capitalize in that Major League Soccer market, not just in the U.S., but I think as you start to get a little bit more of a handle on soccer as a whole, you can start to look at other leagues because, like I'm sure you're all aware of, soccer is a global sport, and the good thing is, unlike football, basketball, I would assume you, Joe. Maybe you're betting some USFL or XFL. With soccer, there's always a couple, I would say 5 to 10 leagues going on around the world that you can actively bet, which other sports you can't unless you're betting, France basketball, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and of course, if you're going to look to make those wagers, make sure you make them over at BetMGM because we're offering $1,000 to the new users there when you sign up at BetMGM, and the promo code is JUICE. So don't forget about that. You get paid back up to $1,000 in free bonuses, even if you don't win. So sign up for BetMGM, use the promo code JUICE, and let's talk about some of those opportunities here that we keep seeing for MLS. Are you somebody that likes to hit the money lines, put a couple things together in parlays? You're looking for individual over-under games. How do you kind of approach the big board on a daily basis when it comes to Major League Soccer in the U.S.?
Yeah, great question. The biggest thing I would say, it might sound overtly simplistic. Home teams. Home teams is where it's at. Okay. I would say outside of the LAFC and FC Cincinnati right now, in the East, LAFC are on the West. More than likely, you will get very decent odds for a home team, regardless if they're good or bad. Meaning that you can, I would say, about 70% chance bet the home team is going to win. Obviously, that's 30% is a pretty big variance when it comes to variables. But more times than not, soccer is an extremely difficult sport, not only to wager but to play. And so sometimes if you get these high favorites that you'll see, the money line for taking the opposing team, whether they're home or even sometimes away, is so good and so juicy looking. It's worth taking a quarter unit, a half unit. I specifically like to play double chance. That's kind of my specialty and where I found a lot of room. You don't always make the largest. You don't always take the largest winnings when you do double chance, but it ensures you're winning, right? Bankroll management's big. Building up your bankroll is really crucial. And so I would love to explain kind of what double chance is for those of you who don't know.
Yes, please.
In soccer, it's interesting, right? There's 3 lines instead of 2, right? So in typical sports, basketball, football, baseball, you have a winner and a loser. Well, in soccer, there's 3. You have a winner, a loser, and a tie or a draw. So on the lines, you'll see 3 typical lines, then you'll have an over and under. With double chance, it's basically ensuring that as long as the team you select wins or ties, you win that bet. So it's not even a push. You win. Granted, you do have to kind of go into some pieces of the sports book to find double chances because they know that that's where the money is held. You can find somewhat decent odds to ensure that you win a certain bet. I love double chances. One of the most frustrating things when you're placing a soccer bet is a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw. And then, sometimes your bet will push or you'll lose a money line play that you ultimately should have won.
So with the double chance, I guess what you're talking about too is you're getting the odds obviously might not be as good, but your odds of winning are much better. So if you have bankrolled to kind of put out there for this, that 2-to-1 side basically of the double 100%. Chance seems like a much smarter path.
2 out of the 3 outcomes ultimately wins you money. And yes, you're not getting as good of odds, but odds will typically, that I like to play with double chance, around -115, -110. Hammer those.
Okay.
Because you're getting 2 out of 3 odds. Even in MLS, I would say double chance is a very solid play. Like I said, outside of LAFC and FC Cincinnati right now, you could honestly take double chance on pretty much any team. If you find a team that is a home underdog and they have any type of near even money as a double chance, I wouldn't even flinch about taking a half unit or a full unit, just because of so much disparity. Maybe disparity is not the right word, but the MLS outside of those 2 teams, and we could probably put LAFC in their own category, isn't top heavy. Any team can win on any given day.
Right. And it's so interesting you said about the home road splits too, because, you've seen so many of these major tournaments, everyone flies in, they play and they are in that one spot. When you're playing and then you're getting on a plane and you're playing in another city and you're going from Chicago to, LA and these back and forths and things like that, it is a physical toll. And that is a very interesting little piece of information there too. When you start to look, Ty, at some of the other, options out there for betting, whether it be, number of goals scored, both teams to score. I know the correct score wager is a very popular one too, with some big time odds potentially. We just did a whole video on that. In case anybody missed that, go subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the bell till it goes ding, and you'll see we just did a correct score wager bet and how to. It's also betting on corners. There's a lot of other things out there. So in terms of those peripheral bets, besides like the main stuff with the double chance, the money line stuff, the over under, do any of these other wagers come up, or are they just really specific to the teams that are playing that night?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Corners and cards is a bit of a conundrum when it comes to soccer betting. The good news with MLS, though, typically, obviously, high-scoring teams have more corners. Low-scoring teams struggle to keep possession. MLS is known for a bit of a chippy league. So if you're feeling unsure about a potential how many cards there's going to be, I would say 4.5 is usually the number you find on most books. So if you see a 4 or maybe a 3.5, I would hammer the over. If you see a 5.5, I would hammer the under. I would say probably 1 out of 3 matches that occurs in MLS has a red card. So that's a fun bet to kind of take note of. You can usually find plus 700, plus 800, even plus 900 odds on the books. A couple of other things too. I personally don't like both teams to score. It does occur, but it's sometimes hard to call. I do like, and I'll give this kind of note to the listeners, I do like taking under 3. The books, for the most part, have lines for MLS to where they think goals are going to happen, goals are going to occur, and that's for the most part correct. MLS defenses have struggled tremendously, and that's kind of what they're notorious for, is high-scoring affairs. But this season, we have not seen the type of goals that we've seen previously. If you find an under 3, take a good hard look, regardless of the 2 teams are playing.
Interesting.
The number that is really important when you're looking at an over-under in soccer is the 2.5 line. So books will typically start at 2.5 total goals. So if you're finding a line that's over-under and it's set at 3, that under, even if the teams have goal scoring records, terrific goal scorers on their team, teams typically battle it out and sometimes cancel each other out. And then I'll touch on the final part that I think is the only part outlined to your question, the correct scores. If a team is high scoring, I would highly suggest never doing a correct score, because the difference between 3-1 and 4-1 is extremely, extremely difficult to call. However, for instance, Nashville and the New York Red Bulls. Nashville somewhat struggled to score. They've been scoring recently. They have a tremendous defense. So a lot of 1-0, 2-0 victories, maybe even a 2-1. The Red Bulls can't score to save their lives. They can't score to save their lives, right? So taking those two teams just off the top of my head, two that I like would say for correct score,
Mhm.
you put a quarter unit on a couple of correct scores, more than likely you're going to hit. If it's a high scoring team like LAFC, like Atlanta,
More dangerous.
or is that what's that?
More dangerous than if you have those high
Way more
scoring teams,
dangerous.
obviously.
Yeah, way more dangerous because yes, you may call like a 3-1 victory, but it could easily change and be 4-1, 4-2. Those teams that like
Mhm.
to open it up in terms of their style of play are a lot riskier. So I would say Nashville and the New York Red Bulls are two teams to look at when selecting correct scores, because of the number of goals are scored is a lot lower. You're looking at maybe 1 to 2 goals total. So
Yeah, I mean, this is great stuff here, Ty. Terrific. And again, follow him on Twitter at SoccerDegen because he is the MLS guy, basically. I'm telling you, great YouTube show also. And all this stuff that Ty's talking about too, in terms of, these lines and the movement and what's going on. This is why you have the Betting Pros app. This is why you download it. You can stay on top of all these things. And then you can look in the specific markets too and see the people who are the best at betting MLS and follow them. And you can kind of piggyback on their wagers as well. And you can track your own progress. But again, bettingpros.com. And you can upgrade as well at bettingpros.com/upgrade. You could also go premium by dropping a comment below in the chat. We're giving away every single month a free premium subscription, or just go to bettingpros.com/premium and go ahead and upgrade today. Ty, I want to pick your brain now about some of the stuff going on in MLS too, in terms of where we're at in the conferences right now. Obviously, you've got in the East, you got Cincinnati and Nashville at the top here, New England, Atlanta United, Philadelphia. Those are the top 5 teams as of us recording right now. In the East, give me a quick breakdown of these top teams and how you see the rest of the season going for them.
yeah, Cincinnati, very good. Will probably
Mm-hmm.
continue to be good. They not only have a terrific attack in Brendan Vasquez and Acosta, but their defense has shown up. They're playing like Nashville's level. Nashville at second place. They've been known for low scoring games. Their issue has always been scoring. They've figured out how to score recently. I have liked the Revolution a lot this season. I honestly I think I picked at the beginning of the season LAFC versus Atlanta. No, excuse me, I picked LAFC versus the Philadelphia Union in the MLS Cup. The Union sit right now in 5th place. They've had kind of a demoralizing year thus far. They're out of CONCACAF Champions League. I think that the top 3, it's probably just going to be a shuffle the remainder of the year. In Cincinnati, Nashville, the Revolution. We've already seen 2 coaches been fired in MLS for the Red Bulls and Chicago Fire, both near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. But I would expect a couple more. Bob Bradley, who coaches Toronto FC, they sit in 14th, last place in the Eastern Conference. He's holding on to his job for dear life. Every week I talk about on our show that I hope that it's not his last, because it's looking that way. So before I get ahead of myself, I personally think Cincinnati will win the Eastern Conference. I know they're in first right now, but I think it's probably going to be Cincinnati, Nashville in the Eastern Conference Finals, with Cincinnati ultimately coming out on top, just because I trust Cincinnati to score. I don't trust Nashville to score.
And now on the West, you've already mentioned LAFC a few times. Seattle, obviously in second place right now. St. Louis, FC Dallas. Is LAFC the class of the West right now? Can anybody really challenge them in your opinion?
Yeah, LAFC are 100% the class of the West, and I think they're the class of the MLS right now. Time and time again, I want to bet against them, and time again, when I do, I get embarrassed extremely. Especially from Dennis Belonga, who I keep telling folks on our YouTube channel to not bet, because eventually his goal scoring is going to stop. It doesn't. It never stops. I believe he leads the league in goals scored, right there up there with Jordan Morris of Seattle. Surprisingly, St. Louis, the new team on the block, St. Louis sits in 3rd. They were leading the Western Conference, I think, up until about week 8. With just an incredible start. I don't know if you could tell by my background, but I am an Austin FC supporter. We have dropped from stardom in the West. We finished 2nd last year. Right now we sit in 9th. But like you said, LAFC, I would be extremely shocked if LAFC do not win the MLS Cup. I think they are above and beyond the top team. If you want to take, a little future bet on them winning, I would say do it now before we get to the playoffs, where obviously the lines.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you next, Ty, because right now LAFC to win the whole thing is at plus 280. That's a pretty good number still.
That's
Cincinnati, who you like in the East, is at plus 900. Seattle's at plus 9. Then you have Nashville at 14. New England at plus 14, and Atlanta at plus 18. So while it's still plus at the plus 280, again, we spoke at the top of the show. This seemed to be the theme, right? Of, things are a little bit more inviting when it comes to the MLS market. So even though it might be it's a local market in the US, but it's a little more foreign to some of the people who bet sports, there's opportunity here. So do you think this 280 is something you lock in now? And do you also sprinkle it on anybody else, maybe even a Cincinnati as well, and throw a unit on there as well with that giant 9-1 number?
100%. Although I talked about, a lot of teams can win on any given night. The season is long. The dust will settle at the end of the season, 100%. I think there's probably about 4 teams right now that I would put money on winning. You could maybe say 5. In the West, it's LAFC and Seattle. I wouldn't put money on anyone else. St. Louis are too new. They're going to tire out. FC Dallas are too inconsistent. So LAFC and Seattle, I would place bets on. In the East, it gets a little bit more tricky. You have the Union sitting in 5th. They've been there before. That might be a good play to maybe put a quarter unit on. I'm not sure exactly what the Union are at right now, but that's something to look at. I would say Cincinnati, and then I would say probably the Revolution. I personally have been burned in the past by betting Nashville. While I do think Nashville are a quality team, I'm just not sold on placing a futures bet for them to win, primarily because I don't think they have enough goal-scoring threat up top to really sustain throughout the season. Yes, they're going to make the playoffs. Yes, they'll probably win a playoff game. But when it comes up to them facing Cincinnati and the Revolution, if there's a team that's going to score, it's probably going to be the opposition against Nashville. And I just don't trust Nashville. So I would say LAFC, Seattle, Cincinnati, the Revolution. And then if you want to get a little dicey, maybe the Union, because they've been there before. I called the LAFC versus the Philadelphia Union rematch this season. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that going into this season, I thought the Union had the much stronger team between them and LAFC. And I think it's just a matter of them figuring it out. So,
fantastic breakdown, man. I mean, if you don't feel more confident about betting on MLS after this show, I don't know what to tell anybody. And again, if you want to continue to boost your confidence, download the Betting Pros app. We also got the pick tracker system on there too. It syncs up with your sports books, so you can see which picks are hitting, which are missing, and it gives you a live look at what the public is doing. And you can have real-time tracking to determine which plays to make and which ones to fade. And I know Ty just gave you a whole bunch of really good ones too. That's at bettingpros.com/pick tracking. And again, download the Betting Pros app, go premium today, and use that promo code JUICE when you sign up at BetMGM for that $1,000 in free bonus bets. And follow our good friend Ty Roeder over at Soccer DGen. Check out his MLS gambling podcast too over on YouTube. It's just tremendous. Ty, can't thank you enough for your time and your insights today. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Ty, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.